All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back. So I'm sure all of you guys, well, I don't know about all of you guys, but a lot of you guys know that I joined Destiny on his channel on Sunday, and we talked about, a multitude of things. We talked January 6th. We talked about the firefighter at the Trump rally, and we talked about the pandemic response. And I saw some very short sections clipped out, and I saw a title on Kyle Kulinski's channel, MAGA YouTuber humiliated by Destiny. Guy, are you serious? Have you looked up my channel? I'm not a MAGA YouTuber, dude. I do combat sports. I happen to cover Trump right now because it's the middle of an election. And when he got shot, I gained 200,000 subscribers and did like 11 million views in 7 days. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to continue to cover my candidate over the next couple months. And that's what I'm going to do. But when we get into the section of the Destiny video that I'm going to show, since we did like almost 90 minutes and they clipped like 4 minutes and they're like, he got humiliated. Well, let's see if I can match that. You know, like, okay, I will call your Jesse didn't know about the slate of electors on January 6th, and I will raise you. Destiny knows literally nothing about the pandemic response whatsoever. His opinions are completely outside of the amount of background knowledge that anyone needs to even have an opinion. And I will demonstrate that today. And yes, Kyle Kulinski, you hurt my feelings because I enjoy your content and I think of you as like a smart person. There's no way you watched there's no way that you watched that full entire interview and thought that I got humiliated. It's impossible. If that is possible, I have misjudged your intelligence. I think you're a smart person. No smart person would believe that I got humiliated in that 90-minute conversation at all. But I will challenge you, just watch this section and then tell me I got humiliated in this part. But yes, Kyle, I would be flattered to come onto your show and we can have a conversation about all of it. You know, any topic that you want, dude. I am about the most moderate Trump supporter that you will possibly find on the internet. And I'm also pretty charming and funny, I've been told. So yes, I will accept your invitation. But as we get into it, I want to make very clear. I only made 3 statements when it came to this conversation in total. 1, I said that Destiny and Sam Harris and Bill Maher cannot be objective when it comes to Trump, that they're very smart people. I enjoy their content. However, when it comes to Trump, they cannot be objective. That's statement number 1. Statement number 2 was you cannot prove that Trump intended to incite violence January 6th. Now, you can show all those clips you want of me not knowing about slate of electors or whatever, but none of them prove that Trump intended to incite violence, so they're actually irrelevant. Now, this section right here is probably the most important section when I am demonstrating that Destiny cannot be clear-headed and unbiased when it comes to this particular topic. What I am setting up is the fact that throughout the entire conversation, he kept attributing opinions to me that I do not have because he looks at me and says he's voting for Trump. I guess that means that fill in the blank, these like a million assumptions that like do not apply to me at all, which means we're doing groupthink, which is not what an objective person does and is certainly not how I or anybody whose, opinion on a specific subject's opinion I respect. Like Destiny's definitely smart enough that I will listen to his opinion on anything as long as it's not about Trump because he's demonstrated he can't differentiate between me and the My Pillow guy, And here's the thing, art of war, dude. What is rule number 1? Rule number 1 is know your enemy. You never ask me why I support Trump because we never would have talked about January 6th. We never would have talked about any of these other things. We would have gone straight to the pandemic response and the background topic related to the pandemic. And you would have known you're wasting your breath on me. All anyone has to do is ask what the effect of that particular issue was on my family. You also would have never tried to talk me into voting for the DNC ever again once you heard it, which you will in this video. Let's continue. And what did I say at the beginning of the conversation? I said, if you don't understand a person's intentions, you can't understand the person or the action that they're taking. An action that they take, you can't really understand what even happened. And so if you make an incorrect assumption about what a person's intentions were, then every single fact that you're going to look at subsequent to that is going to support an incorrect conclusion. Is that fair? That like, if you don't understand or.
Yeah, I agree.
And he demonstrated through the entire conversation that he doesn't even try to understand anyone's intentions. He literally goes, you're voting for Trump. Here's all the things you think. which was wrong every single time.
I think that people like you have a greater allegiance to Trump than any part of the United States. That's
a ridiculous. You know nothing about my politics at all. That's completely not true.
Do you think that
like I'll give you an example of here's how I see America. Perfect example. Brittany Griner is arrested in Russia, and you have a lot of conservative retards that are like, let him have her. Let him have her. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? She's an American, and she's in a Russian gulag, and she's being held as a political prisoner. She's American. Like, we can argue about whether her views are stupid or not when she gets home, but I will always have her back because she's American. Now, making an assumption that I have a greater allegiance to Trump than the United States of America is an especially egregious example, but that was one of many. You may also remember that when I was talking about the firefighter who got killed, he started talking about things that Trump supporters, quote unquote, did, which disqualified this guy from the empathy that we would give to a father and his family when he got killed in front of or on top of them. I'm like, he started talking about like MAGA people making fun of George Floyd. I'm like, that guy did? And I'm sure you're sick of talking about the firemen, but like, this is your guys' issue, is you've attributed so much villainy to Trump that a thing like a father firefighter, a guy who goes fishing on Saturday, a guy who, doubles as a church cleric or whatever, can be at a rally with his family having a good time, and a minute later he can get shot in the face, and his daughters actually see their father's blown up corpse in front of them. And it makes sense to you that guy is not worthy of empathy because he was a Trump supporter, not any of those other things. That's what I'm talking about. Is like when people say the Trump derangement syndrome thing, that's what they're talking about.
Trump supporters have spent their entire lives of Trump in office, the past 8 years, making fun of or going after George Floyd, BLM victims.
Now, you are mere minutes from finding out the full details of exactly why I ended up on the side that I am politically in detail. But first, we are going to get into this conversation a little bit, and here is some context. Now, the beginning of this, where we end up on that conversation is we were talking about the end of January 6th, where, again, my entire point was just about people. Every opinion I have is just like, hey, put yourself in this person's position. Can you understand? And what I was saying was, can you understand why people were suspicious of the election, regardless of whether or not you think that there was election fraud or not? Can you understand why people who supported him believed that there was? That's the question I ask, and that's how we get into this. Would you understand, given the way that the Mueller report played out and that entire saga, why people would be not fast to believe any official narrative that came about related to the election, especially after COVID, where literally everything that they said all along the way ended up being not true.
First of all, that's not true. Everything, the Democrats to the left were far more accurate about COVID than anything the conservatives said. I'm still waiting for people to mass die from vaccines. I'm still waiting for the mass blood clots and the mass vaccine injuries and the mass mandatory vaccine periods and the mass vaccine passports. Like, none of this ever happened. So the conservatives were dead wrong on literally all of that.
Hey, what do you guys think about that statement? I'm sorry, did the Democrats say that if you go get vaccinated, that you will not transmit? The second, you'll stop it in its tracks, okay? Is that an important point? That if you go and get the jab, that it will stop transmission in its tracks? I mean, because if you were wrong about that, that would be a pretty important thing, right? Like if every single Democrat parroted that across the country, hey guys, if you go get this, it stops transmission in its tracks. Did that happen? No, it didn't stop transmission. No. Okay. And so if you want to say like, yeah, but it did save people from, dying in the hospital. Okay. That's not what they said. They said it stops transmission. They were 100% wrong about that. And so when he's saying mass deaths from the jab or whatever, what did I say that? I didn't say that. Okay. Now I might've said, in fairness, I do talk in hyperbole. Okay. I said everything they said was not true. It's a hyperbolic statement, but he's just said blood clots. You just said blood clots, right? I'm sorry. Have you looked into why AstraZeneca got taken off the market? Like you might even be able to find that on Google, as in for sure you can. Okay. AstraZeneca off the market because of blood clots. That's why it got taken off the market. And Anyway, let's continue. Now, I cut a very small portion out of this, and I'm just going to tell you what's in it. You can go back and watch if you want, okay? Because I'm going to get this part out of the way so you don't have to see us do it in pieces. What I said was that during the pandemic, the reason why I ended up on the side that I'm on is because when my oldest daughter was a baby, she got hurt by a jab. And so we had medical exemptions in California. And as a result of California becoming the first and only state to invalidate medical exemptions across the board, okay? Across the board. A doctor told myself and my wife that they were not safe to give to our daughters because they were much higher risk of adverse reactions, okay? And California, even though 96.7% people had adopted the mandates, and we're talking about for regular, like we're not even talking about COVID, we're talking about regular jabs, okay? There was herd immunity on all of them, and they invalidated the medical exemptions. And they're the only state that's ever done that. And so they put us in a position where we had to either inject our children with the entire schedule to get caught up when any one of them is much more dangerous for our kids than anyone else, or than, the 97% that don't have that issue. Or we have to move out of the state, okay? My mom lived 10 minutes from me. My dad lived 10 minutes from me. My brother lived 15 minutes from me with his wife and his 3 kids. My 2 nieces and my nephew. Okay. I lost all that time. Okay. You know how much life I have left to lead? They're never leaving California. You have any idea how much time with my family I lost because California is absolutely stone corrupt to the pharmaceutical companies? Okay. Do you really think that you're going to convince me to vote for that side when that's who they represent in crystal clear? Like there's no one that would question that. They are the ones who represented the mandates. They're the ones who invalidated our medical exemptions. They're the reason that I don't get to go barbecue with my fucking brother this weekend and play with my nieces and nephews. The reason I see them once a fucking year instead of 4 times a month for the rest of my life. Okay? So fuck the DNC. They invaded my fucking family. I will never vote for them. Ever. Okay? But let's continue. And then you'll understand why I know so much more about this topic than he does. All right. Let's go ahead and continue.
Right, so before we move on, because you jumped from everything, do you acknowledge that every single conspiracy about vaccines ended up being incorrect?
No, but let me
wait. What was one that ended up being correct?
I mean, the fact that they were, it's not even about conspiracy. It was an untested medicine, an untested.
It was tested, right? There were trials, right?
No, they did no human trials on the boosters. Also.
Wait, no, not the booster. On the original vaccine, there were trials for that, right?
Oh, I don't know. There no long-term studies for sure. They did it on the
because it was emergency use authorization, right? Why is it? Did you feel the same way about the monoclonal antibody treatment? Because that was emergency use authorization. Why didn't conservatives protest that? Not Donald Trump. Joe Rogan promoted
because
that.
Nobody mandated that they take it.
But it was the same type of trialing for
nobody mandated that they take it. I didn't have a problem with the COVID vaccine. The problem was always with the government mandating that people take it against their will.
The problem,
See, now this is another incident where he is going to say something about like, this is what the MAGA people did. I'm like, dude, I don't understand how you keep saying things like that. I'm not MAGA people. I'm Jesse. Okay. I'm Jesse. I'm an individual. And the question that they never ask is, why are people supporting Trump? You really believe that every single person on that side is exactly the same? Again, Lex Friedman is voting for Trump. Do you think Lex Friedman agrees with all of this crazy stuff that you think every single Trump supporter agrees with? It's so bizarre.
The problem wasn't just the mandates. There were a whole bunch of claims made. The things that you just said, there weren't any testing for. That doesn't have to do with mandating or not. You're saying that it's an untested medicine. Even if there were no mandates, that would still be a bad thing, right?
I'm saying the reason why people were not unreasonable to not want to take the vaccine was because there are no long-term trials, and then the government came in and threatened their jobs and forced them to take it.
Well, that didn't happen. That died in the Supreme Court, right? The government never wasn't able to mandate the vaccine for the country, right?
So did New York fire 70,000 healthcare workers that refused to take the shot?
For New York state, are we talking about the federal government? Are we talking about state governments or
across the board?
Did New York State implement that? Was that a New York State policy, or were these just hospitals implementing it?
I assume that most of you already know the answer to that, right? Now, if I wanted to be a fucking dick about this when we were doing it, I could have just done exactly what he did and made myself a little viral clip and been like, Jesus, you're talking about government policy on the jab. You don't even know that the new governor came in and fired all the healthcare workers that refused to take the shot when they had already had the virus. Jeez, man, I don't know. Like, so all you have is feelings, you know? Two can do that, except I didn't do that because I was just being nice and respectful. That wasn't my goal to go on there and humiliate him at all.
No, New York State, when Andrew Cuomo went through his thing of, whatever was going on to where he resigned. And literally the very first action that the new governor took was she fired 70,000 healthcare workers in New York who did not want to take the shot. The healthcare workers, and many of them had already had COVID. And so they're like, I have the antibodies. And they're like, too bad you have to take the shot. And they're like, they're medical professionals. They're like, there's no long-term studies. I don't feel comfortable taking the shot. And they lost their jobs, 70,000 in New York alone.
Now, my mom fact checked this and she found some random article that said it was actually 35,000, not 70,000. I can't verify that anywhere. My number was 70,000, but let's just be clear. Does that invalidate the point that I made? The government fired the healthcare workers that refuse to take the shot. Now, it is possible that the 35,000 number is correct. I mean, I don't have any idea. Everywhere that I looked was there are still 70,000 healthcare workers that have not adopted the shot. And then this random fact check article said that it ended up being 35. So maybe half of them took the shot before they lost their job. But again, is that okay? There's 70,000 that did not want to take it. 35,000 cracked and took it. 35,000 got fired. Either way, the government is completely out of line. That's my point. I am not a person who makes claims I can't defend. I have no idea. I'm not a scientist. I am about humanity. That's where my positions are. Okay. The government cannot tell a person that they have to do that unless it is absolutely dire situation. And it wasn't.
I would have to look this up, but I don't.
That's a fact.
Yeah, considering every single other thing you've said is incorrect, I would be hesitant.
There's not one thing that I said was incorrect. Nothing. Literally nothing. I made no hard fact claims. That's why I in my mind right there, I was like, what does he think that I've claimed in this entire debate? Because I've made no claims intentionally. Because I know that if I say something that's wrong, he's going to eat me alive with it, dude. That's why I didn't do that. Every single question, every single position I took was from the position of a person. Okay? I'm not going to say something that I don't know for sure.
To believe this, that it came from the government. It might have come from a union. It might have come from a hospital. But
it came from the state. Governor, 70,000.
Okay.
That's why I've always been suspicious about why Cuomo got ousted, because I was like, seems weird. Like, the guy's the hero, and then all of a sudden they're like, this is going on, and then he resigns. And then the very first thing that she did, my hypothesis was like, maybe he just going along with the program. He's like, dude, I'm not going to fire the healthcare workers. And I know, like, the federal government, they tried to do the OSHA thing. My opinion was they knew that was going to fail in court, and they did it just to get as many people to take the shot as possible before it died in court.
Sorry, I just had to fix the audio. Let's continue.
And listen, I have no problem with people taking the shot whatsoever. Everyone in my family took it. In all honesty, I probably would have taken it under different circumstances.
Well, for claims about the health impacts of the vaccine, do you agree that none of those came true? Which thing about that was said about vaccines at the time, which of those ended up being correct?
That they cause myocarditis especially in teenage boys. That's a fact now.
Now, I also want to point out that he and I do the exact same thing, okay? He talks in hyperbole, just like me, okay? None of them came true, okay? What I'm sure if you really drilled into it, what he means, when he's saying conspiracy theories, he's talking about the most extreme stuff, right? That, millions of people are taking it and just dying. Okay, well, I can't prove that, so I'm not going to claim that. I know that people say that. I can't prove it. Everything that I'm saying in this conversation is verified by mainstream media sources now. All right, so let's go ahead and continue.
Fact now.
At rates nonsense. Comparable to or lesser than COVID itself, right? Like COVID causes myocarditis, right?
There are different studies that have different conclusions. But no,
do you think that COVID causes myocarditis?
Of course, that's not in dispute.
Okay, the rates for myocarditis, I think at the most at-risk group was for young men. It was 7 to 14 out of 100,000 people.
Now, I'm not signing off on that stat, but even if that was accurate, would anybody agree that is relevant? The level of risk of heart inflammation, because we're talking about mandates. All right, I'm choosing to cut this off here because this platform is very specific about what you can and can't say related to this topic. I know everything I've said thus far is just provably mainstream media sources. I'm just not going to risk it. However, what I am going to say, and if you want to see the rest of the conversation, you can watch it at the end of the Destiny interview, the total Destiny interview. But here's what I'm going to say, okay? So the mandates as it relates to people being forced to take the thing, that's not the only thing that happened throughout the pandemic. I know a lot of small business owners, and I know a lot of people who are involved in the martial arts community who got their lives destroyed during the pandemic because of the lockdowns, okay? Bottom line. Now, if you are going to tell me that these policies that got implemented by the Democrats during the pandemic had some wildly positive impact, okay? And I'm not talking about the shot. I'm talking about lockdowns, okay? People lost everything. They did that. Their policies destroyed people's lives, destroyed their lives, and they did not care. They didn't care about barbers. They didn't care about masseuses. They didn't care about anyone who was self-employed. They didn't care about jiu-jitsu gyms. They didn't care about restaurants. They didn't care about anyone. They locked it down, in my opinion, all in favor of pushing all the dollars people might have spent over there to the pharmaceutical companies and a bunch of other disgusting organizations that profited from the destruction of the small business community. That's why when I see polls, I don't believe the polls. I'm sorry, I don't believe you. You can't destroy the lives of every single small business owner in the country and then expect me to believe that they're voting for the left ever again, okay? You come and invade someone's life, they are not voting for you anymore. That's why I don't believe the polls. I do not believe it. I don't believe it. If they say that, Trump lost, I'll tell you in advance, I'm not going to believe it, okay? Doesn't mean I'm going to do anything violent about it, but bottom line, I won't believe it, and that's why. So that is what I got. Respect to Destiny. He's an exceptional debater, very smart guy. We don't agree on things, okay? But that's nothing against him. And I will apologize for calling him a drug addict, okay? He has a Vyvanse prescription. I didn't know that. I will say I seem to have been right about whether or not he's taking uppers, but he's got Vyvanse, not a drug addict. I take it back, okay? I take it back. Respect to the guy. But that is what I got here. And Kyle Kulinski, I think you actually owe me an appearance on your show where we can have a conversation because you put out a video that said MAGA guy humiliated like a fucking child 5-year-old. You're better than that, dude. Anyway, that's what I got. What is on my face? Did I cut myself? God damn it, man. Anyway, I'll clean up my face before my appearance, Kyle Kulinski. And my email is realjesseonfire@gmail.com. Bye-bye.